Okay,
All right, it's 1 o'clock and I'm calling the June 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Albemarle County Architecture Review Board to order. Could you call the roll, please?
yes. Mr. Vanderwerf,
Here.
Mr. Mitsuno,
Here.
Mr. Stoner.
Here.
Mr. Hancock,
Here.
Mr. Vanderwerf, no, Mr.
Henningsen.
Henningsen.
Here.
I think I did this last time. I don't know.
Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting. The public may access and participate in the meeting electronically. Instructions for doing so are posted on the Albemarle County website at the Albemarle County calendar. The public has real-time audiovisual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone. Both is provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. This meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. All speakers, when it is your turn to speak, please first state your name for the record. Applicants who are making presentations, note that your presentation is limited to a total of 15 minutes, which you can divide among your team members. Staff will let us know when the 15 minutes are up. If applicants in the meeting room have team members attending virtually who will need to present, please make that known when you come to the podium. Everyone who is participating virtually, please mute your microphone until it is your turn to speak. Do any ARB members have anything to disclose?
No.
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 All right, thank you. Are there any members of the public that want to make a comment about a project that is not on the agenda for review?
Don't have anyone online.
All right, great. We do not have any consent agenda items today, and we do not have any work sessions today. We have two regular review items. The first is ARB 2024-42, Georgetown and Hydraulic Comprehensive Sign Plan. Chris, do you have your presentation?
Yes.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. The application you're reviewing today is a comprehensive sign plan for, switch the input,
Sorry, whoops.
start from the top. The application you're reviewing today is a comprehensive sign plan for 2701 Hydraulic Road. In 2020, a certificate of appropriateness was issued for this development. However, CSP was not included in that review. Since then, construction has been completed and improved landscaping is in place. It was noted in the staff report that a painted sign had been added above one of the entrances along Hydraulic Road without a permit. After the staff report was finalized, the applicant clarified that the sign is a heat-applied vinyl that can be removed. The proposal allows for anodized aluminum panels with rattle letters to be attached to the brick walls. On the first and second floor, the east elevation, the panels are shown centered above the storefront windows at the ends of each bay. On the north and south elevations, the panels are centered above the windows on each floor. The locations shown do not conflict with any architectural detailing. However, revising the plan to allow signs to extend along the full length of the second-story band, provided that they maintain centering and avoid architectural detailing, would allow for greater flexibility for present and future tenants. Additionally, the CSP will need to be revised to specify the color of the panels. Regarding lighting, the sign plan notes that the panels will be halo lit. However, with a one inch offset from the wall, it was unclear how this illumination would be accommodated. Since the staff report was finalized, the applicant clarified that the panels will be illuminated using LED strip lighting attached to the back of the sign. The CSP will need to be revised to provide these details and specifications on the strips. The CSP notes that the graphic color and illuminations would be subject to review. However, no specific details have been provided. Drawings appear to show graphics as large as the text and as tall as the panels. Revising the CSP to indicate that the graphics would be balanced in size in proportion to the text and limiting the graphics to routed graphics and logos, or routed graphics or logos would be appropriate. Staff recommends approval of the CSP with the changes listed in the staff report. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks a lot for the presentation. Dave, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just one. Thank you, Chris. And it's maybe for the applicant. It looked like the exhibits show multiple installations of sort of the same tenant sign. Is that something that is explicitly proposed in the plan? Is that something that there's precedent for, or is it more customary to have one sign for one tenant?
Are you referring to the panels that appear to show specific tenants?
Yes, yeah.
In discussion with the applicant, it appeared that it was just kind of for display purposes, and the specific tenants would apply for their signs at a later date.
Oh.
So they're just kind of just put on the building to kind of display location versus the specific tenants.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Tara, do you have any questions?
No, thanks for the presentation.
Frank Stone,
No, thanks.
Frank Hancock?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I don't have any questions either. So if the applicant has a presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Schaefer. I'm with Design Develop here in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is not the correct one. Sorry about that. Maybe it's just mistitled. Yes, okay. We'll go with this one. We just want to take a moment to provide a little bit of clarity based on some of staff's comments and recommendations. I'll start first by addressing how the signs would be lit. So each sign is a panel of what we called out as aluminum panel that would match the existing trim. Excuse me. There's black eave trim or parapet cap on the coping. There's also some bronze storefront windows and overhang entry elements, canopy elements that are all black. And so we would mimic this color palette, and essentially the signs would be the negative. We would route out the letters and the brands, the logos, the graphics that are associated with the sign, and then allow the brick to be visible through that sign. We've worked with sign manufacturers and lighting reps to kind of refine this detail. And so this image that you see on the right, which is the first time you would see this image, is the backside. And essentially to gain the rigidity for that aluminum panel, manufacturers talked about like a 1-inch aluminum standoff that would be continuous. And on that 1-inch standoff or return, we would attach the LED light strip. I have samples of that light that I conveniently left in the office, so I apologize, but it's like a light tape, like a commercial grade light tape for inside that cabinet that is formed between the aluminum panel and the brick. We are certainly open to staff's comments on the flexibility of the signage panel. I think that's a thoughtful comment that allows flexibility for the future use. The way that the building is organized is, it fronts on Georgetown, it fronts on Hydraulic. There's a central stair as well as end stairs. So there's quite a few configurations in terms of tenant layout. So we do appreciate the flexibility, because it could be somebody occupies the entire upper floor, or they occupy 2/3 of the upper floor, and the same thing happens on the lower level. This is just the north and south sign. As Chris mentioned, the sign that's on there currently is a heat applied vinyl that will be removed once this is approved and the permanent signs become installed. Really more just sort of a temporary sign as we work through this process. So I think we are happy to revise our signage criteria based on staff's comments. The letter color, I think we had called out a black. There isn't a proposed letter color at all. It's all just kind of the void, the negative of that panel. So revising the letter color to brick behind panels is perfectly appropriate. the return color, and the request was to just clarify where that happens. That's that 1-inch strip on the back. It won't be visible from the signs. It'll be inset from the perimeter of the signs by 1.5 inches or so. So that it looks like a standoff, a traditional standoff for the building, but it gives rigidity to that sign. We call out anodized aluminum, but I think we probably mean here is like a dark bronze or black aluminum that will match the existing windows storefront system and the parapet coping cap. And then we are find the comment regarding the graphics acceptable, fully incorporated as an integral part of the overall sign. I think a lot of these comments will probably be addressed, to be similar responses to the Ivy proper one. So it may be helpful for me to understand the process a little bit better with the comprehensive sign plan. I think we were thinking this was a set of rules that each individual sign will have to follow, and individual signs will then go to staff for review. Is that correct?
Correct.
And will they come back in front of the board? No, okay, all right, that's helpful. And so regarding the question of multiple tenant signs, it could be the case that a tenant takes the whole floor, and then there could be multiple signs for a single tenant. They would be on different facades, I think, but that would be, I guess, something that staff reviews at that point. Okay. I think that covers all of the staff comments, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thanks a lot. Frank Stoner, do you have any questions?
Just quick clarification on the logo sign above the first floor, which looks to be, rather than reversed out, that would be letters in black mounted,
No,
or is that,
Those
would that
are
be the same as what?
everything's
Everything's
the
the
same.
same. Okay.
Mhm. Just an aluminum panel with routed out
Gotcha.
negative space.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my only question.
All right, Dade,
No, thanks for answering my question.
Frank Hancock?
Sure. Following up on Frank's question, is there a difference where it says logo? Like, would that sign only be a logo? Okay, so that sign could be the
Yeah.
full name
Yeah. the same
Yes.
as above. Okay.
Currently, the building has 2 tenants, Central Virginia Orthodontics and Stone Fox Beauty. So we use those, and the others are just placeholders.
Would you ever have like the name of the company at the top, like written out, and then their logo in that middle, and you would have 2 signs for one company?
No, not
Okay.
in a sense, I don't think. Oh, I guess is a good question. Is there a way to like limit that in the language somehow? Other than I think your note. Graphics must be fully incorporated as an integral part of the overall sign. Does that cover that?
And then you guys aren't asking for any additional colors or anything? It's just this black and open letter graphic?
Yeah,
Format.
and even maybe going a little bit more in depth into it, both of these are managed by BMC, owned and managed by BMC. And so there's a desire for a consistency in the look of the building, even though it's multiple tenants. And they really like this fabrication process. They used it on the office over on High Street for their monument sign, and it was successful in how it was lit and ease of construction and those sorts of things. And so it's been tested, works for them, and it's a nice consistent look that kind of keeps the building from getting too, these aren't huge buildings, either of the buildings that we're reviewing today. So too many colors and too many logos and brands and everything can start to get a little bit muddy, and they want to utilize this comprehensive sign plan as a way of just establishing those rules that are consistent.
And then last question, just the thickness of the sign panel. Do you know that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We added the inch thickness to keep the panel thickness down. I do want to say it's a 1/4 inch, but that seems a little heavy.
Visually, I think, will it look more like it's pretty affixed? So that maybe the thickness doesn't matter as much of the
Yeah.
actual panel. I know there's a 1 inch.
There's the standoff.
But
That provides the rigidity. I think it'll look almost like a blade, a kind of floating out
Yeah.
panel, if that. helps.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, Tara, any questions?
I'm sorry, could you go back to the summary of the, I was just hoping you could clarify. So if you had it seems like you have single tenants in the upper stories, for instance, their request would be the ability to have multiple signs for the same tenant on different parts of that same facade? Like a quantity limitation or anything, like if you had one tenant?
I'll look to y'all for, it's a good question. There may be instances where a single tenant wants multiple signs. I struggle to see an instance where they're on the same facade, on the same roadway frontage, you know,
Oh
I
yeah,
think it
just
would
because
be.
it shows it on the image
Yeah,
also.
right, exactly.
I'm like, does Stone Fox want?
Sure, like
two on
here
each
and here
place.
isn't necessarily what we're suggesting. We're just establishing locations that felt were appropriate. I certainly understand the confusion. I'm not sure what the ordinance would say.
I can't think of a time when anybody's ever proposed that. It's usually if it's often maybe the same sign on two different elevations or just different text on different panels.
Okay. Just curious. All right, thank you.
My only question or clarification really is like the light, in addition to being visible from behind the sign, and the light also spills out kind of at the perimeter of the sign, or is it like contained somehow?
Contained within that 1-inch cabinet. Let me go back to, let's say this, and it's a little bit hard to see. I might even try and get crazy and zoom in here. So there'll be
Oh,
a
okay.
1-inch, and on the inside of
Yeah.
that 1-inch facing inwards. And that
Got it.
1-inch, standoff will basically butt up against the brick.
Yeah.
So not anticipating spill out the side.
All right, thanks. That was my only question. Are there any members of the public who want to make a comment?
Neil Williamson with the Free Enterprise Forum. As with most applications, we do not have an opinion about this application. But as the ARB does not have legal counsel here, I would encourage you to get such counsel before rendering an opinion about what is on a sign. Your purview is not for content, rather it's for composition. And that would be a slippery slope if you could start to regulate what is on the sign. But that's for further thought.
All right, thank you. The ARB will now go into discussion. Starting with Tara, do you have any comments?
No, I think that in general, the plan as proposed, seems pretty sensible to me. I don't have any significant issues with the way that it's, presented. So,
All right,
Thank you.
thanks. Frank Hancock.
Sure, I think it's a really nice application, and in my mind, it seems to be, it's exactly what we are looking for with a comprehensive sign plan. Seems very thoughtful how it works with the architecture. I mean, it seems the building was designed maybe thinking through this, if I had to guess, so. Yeah, I think it's a nice application. No objections.
All right, thanks. Dave?
Yeah, like my fellow members, I think it's a nice application. I appreciate just sort of the minimal material palette and the way the sign relates to the building materials in terms of the color and aluminum. Appreciate, Chris, your question about light spill and the applicant's assurance that the perimeter contains that, because I guess this is effectively sort of a panel sign, or I don't know how it would fit in the ordinance. Yeah.
Thanks. Frank Stoner?
I agree with all my cohorts here. I think it's a nice understated expression or technique for addressing what could be multiple tenants. So yeah, no objection.
All right, thanks. And I totally agree with everybody. I think it's a good proposal and no objections. I guess if we could review the recommended motion.
Just to repeat, the recommendation is for approval with the revisions that were listed in the staff report.
All right, does anyone have any tweaks they'd like to make to any of the recommended revisions?
I don't.
I don't have any.
Then if there are no revisions, would anybody like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll move. I'll move to approve comprehensive sign plan criteria with the revisions listed in the staff report. No amendments.
I'll second.
All right, if we could call a vote.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Mitsuno,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Our second review item is ARB 2024-46, Ivy Proper Comprehensive Sign Plan and Monument Sign. Russ?
Yes, me again. What you're reviewing now is another comprehensive sign plan, this time for 4290 Ivy Road. And also a building permit for the monument sign is included in this review. 2021, a certificate of appropriateness was issued for this development. CSP was not included in that review. And then like the previous application, construction has been completed and improved landscaping is in place. Similar to the previous application, the proposal allows for anodized aluminum panels with routed letters to be attached, in this case, to board and batten walls. On the in bays, the sign area is shown above the window and wood panel grouping. On the center bay, the sign area is shown above the window grouping. These locations do not conflict with architectural detailing, but the sign location within the center bay looks uncoordinated with the architectural details present. Revising the sign area on the center bay to be centered within the bay would provide for a more unified appearance. As noted in the earlier presentation, the sign plan notes that the panels will be halo lit, but since the staff report was finalized, the applicant has clarified these details. These details will need to be added to the included in the comprehensive sign plan to provide that clarification. Once again, for the graphics, they noted to be subject to review. As the applicant noted in this meeting that the colors will not be added, but they need to include the note by regarding balance and size and proportion to the text and limit the graphics to routed graphics and logos on the entrance quarter facing elevation. In this case, as noted, there's a monument sign which will use materials that are compatible with the existing sign or building design. However, no landscaping shown at the base of the sign. The low base of the sign will not allow for shrubs, but low ground cover could help better integrate the sign to the overall landscape and would be consistent with other freestanding signs in the area. Recommendation was not made in the staff report, but the recommendation has been added to the list of revisions that you will review later. Staff recommends approval of this comprehensive sign plan, again, with the changes listed in the staff report. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks a lot for the presentation. Frank Hancock, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thanks, Chris.
Frank Stoner,
No, I don't have any either. Thanks.
Dade,
No questions. Thank you.
Tara?
No questions.
Sorry, I don't have any questions either. If the applicant has a presentation.
Thank you. I think we can keep this one brief as most of the topics were covered in the previous review. However, I did want to get into and providing a little bit more clarity on monument sign. Very similar strategy here in that the cabinet will be built out an inch with that inch standoff. The LED strips will be tucked onto the inside of that standoff. And then here we're actually utilizing like a white acrylic that will provide sort of even backlight on that for that tenant sign to achieve the internal lit look that we're going for here. We have the black aluminum sign body and then the Ivy proper signs up here are the only place where we kind of have white aluminum signs for the address and just the Ivy proper building name. Everything else is on the building and on the tenant signs here are that sort of that negative relief route out the panel and backlight in the same fashion that was just reviewed previously. I think this is maybe the only one that we'll look to the board for their weigh in and opinion on. We had looked at centering the signage band in this gable. And because of the orientation of the windows and kind of the placement of the windows, it felt a little awkward and off balance because the windows are not symmetrical. And so we took maybe a different strategy, which is to center above kind of identifiable window bays. There's the wood bay here that we center on from window to corner. We, anchor that on the other side in a similar fashion. And then here, there's kind of this implied window bay. And even though it doesn't have the, wood accent panel on there, it starts to kind of read cohesively, especially once we add this sign band up top. So this is, certainly something we would acquiesce to staff's comments on, but we just wanted to talk through our analysis of that and kind of what we were seeing when we modeled this out. And we're open to either opportunity there. Similarly, I think we show WAG, which is the current tenant there. And these graphics are really more just for us to kind of show what the logo may look like and things like that. They'll be bringing individuals signed permits to staff. Staff did note to say that the board and batten will be visible through here as the letters. Everything is, again, that sort of negative relief approach. And I think that summarizes the revisions. Again, here in the criteria chart, board and batten behind the panels per staff's comments. I think we had black listed as a letter color. The trim return color that we were calling out happens on the back side of the panels and will not be particularly visible unless you kind of get your head back behind there somehow. You have to really be trying, I think. The mounting details and the lighting details would be similar to the ones we just discussed, and we are on board with the comment regarding graphics must be fully incorporated. So if you have any questions for me, happy to answer.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Frank Stoner?
Just one question. Do you envision the panels all being the same length and the logos being of varying lengths, or would the panels vary depending on the?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the panels vary depending on the logo. So WAG is, a very, very small one. On the other side, we currently have Ivy Rehab. But the panel should be proportional to the logo and the text that's filling it. And so what we've done is we've kind of outlined in the comprehensive sign, the maximum allowable sign panel size. And then tenants will bring in what feels appropriate from a proportion perspective.
Great, thank
All
you.
right, thanks. Dade, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I guess a question about the containment of the light, since it'll be I guess, held off by the depth of the battens, the
Mhm.
board and batten siding. Do you have a sense of whether the light's expected to be contained, or is there any additional measure needed to contain it behind the sign?
Yeah, great question. The proposal to make sure that the light is even through the board and batten channels sections, will be trimming the, hardy, board and batten piece so that, the light can go through the entire area of the sign. So that it'll stick off from the face of the vertical hardy panel, the inch, a consistent inch.
Okay. I guess, so do you think that there'll be a spill from the perimeter LED tape outside of the sign area?
No.
Okay,
Similar to the
Okay.
brick that would sit flush against it.
okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. Frank Hancock?
Sure. Are there any other elements on the building that are black? Or are those bollards out front black?
The bollards are black, site lighting's black, and storefront is black. Or windows, it's, well, yeah, there's black storefront and there's also black manufactured windows, but the window frames are black. Site lighting is black, so yeah, I think that's, and that we have canopies on both sides that are, painted black.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Tara, any questions?
Could you tell me about the wood finish on the monument sign? Like what, could you tell me, is it like a stained?
Yes, stained and sealed. The species that we used on the building, I think was a red grandis, which is a eucalyptus. Want to say that? I can confirm that. And it got a Sikkens clear coat.
Okay. And what's the height of the monument sign over grade generally?
I want to say 4'6", but the grade does fall away slightly.
Oh,
It's pretty minimal. The grade falling away towards the road, but it does fall away some.
I guess what I'm concerned about with the monument sign is just the because it's this wood finished item, it looks like it gets pretty close to the ground. And I'm imagining with landscaping, for instance, like if a mower, like I just don't know if that wood is gonna hold up so great at that height. I wonder if you've given thought to how that would work over time.
So we know we have a, concrete foundation, that will stick out of the ground a little bit. Maybe it just needs a little bit more breathing room on that foundation wall to get it off the grade a little bit. I think there's a balance between, sticking a concrete foundation wall out of the grade too much and making it too much of a materialistic element. But I think especially if we go towards like a Larabi or ground cover or something like that, whatever the board would recommend, giving it a little bit of an additional height would go a long way from a maintenance perspective, like you're talking about.
Yeah, I wonder if with like, a height marked at say 6 or 8 inches at the lowest point and a
Mhm.
ground cover could help that stand up a little bit better, given its prominence and location and just what's gonna happen around it over time.
Yeah, I don't think the building owner would mind if this sign got taller either, so. Certainly open to that.
All right, thanks. I don't have any questions. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment?
Do not have anyone.
All right, thanks. In that case, the ARB will now go into discussion. Tara, do you have any comments?
My only comments are on the monument sign, as we just discussed. I think otherwise it makes sense to me. Yeah, thank you for the presentation.
All right, thanks. Frank Hancock?
Sure, I agree with Taro on the monument sign. I do think like ground cover would keep some of the maintenance, some of like weed eaters and stuff out of there. Hopefully. I think Frank Stoner makes a good point. I'm just worried if like the WAG sign looks pretty insignificant. I think the red box feels like the sign and that architecturally and proportionally feels right. But I don't know, I'm not gonna base any decision on adding that or making, because then I guess you open up another set of issues of a lot of blank space on it with something smack in the middle, but helpful to know that there's other black, and the rendering was, kind of showed it as gray, which also looked nice, but and it matched like the roof, but I don't know that that's the case. But again, I think it's a nice package. I think architecturally, it's a really nice building. I think it does a lot of things that we talk a lot about. So, and I feel like the sign package fits and doesn't take anything away from that. So,
Thanks. Dade?
Sure. Yeah, well, I agree with what folks have said. The tenant asked, excuse me, the applicant asked about the centering of the signs. I think the proposed centering that they illustrated seems very nice with the architecture of the building. Yeah, just would echo Frank's and Tara's comments, but.
All right, thanks. Frank Stoner?
Yeah, nothing really to add other than I do have a little bit of concern about the width of the sign blocks themselves, because I think they relate really well to the architectural features of the building. And I'm afraid, take WAG, for example, you shrink it down and all of a sudden it starts to look like it's floating and like it doesn't really have any relationship to the building. That's a suggestion, not a requirement. I think overall, I think the package is very appropriate. Again, understated, classy. No objection.
All right, great, thank you. I agree with what everyone has said. I guess regrettably, because every time we meet, we have the same applicant show up, and if we keep approving things, he's just gonna keep coming back. So,
it's an honorary
Um,
member.
So if we could look at the recommended motion.
So the recommendation was for approval of the comprehensive sign plan criteria and the freestanding sign with the revisions listed in the staff report. I've highlighted number 2, which is the condition related to the sign location on the center bay of the south elevation. And then I've added some notes in red at the end. Number 8 was to add the ground cover at the base of the sign. 9 is to consider increasing the height of the concrete base for better maintenance of the wood. And 10 could be something about these wall panel lengths, if you want to add that.
All right, thanks. Does anybody have any additional tweaks or comments?
I think Frank Stoner alluded to the length of the sign relating to the architectural elements. So I think if we include something like 10, that was a good reference to include. So like if there's a length of the sign, it would be as wide as the wood paneling or the wood paneling and the windows in that location or something. Or I guess sign lengths should relate to architectural elements beneath them. Although that, I don't know, appreciate your
yeah.
observation.
Could we look at the sign, could we look at the sign plan again? I remember that there was a ratio of 20 square feet, 2-foot max height. If there's just a minimum length, would a minimum length work or something like that, like a batten spacing or?
We put it back up and I think the applicant has the freedom to do that if they want to.
Yeah.
Certainly where it's centered, it's not, it's centered on the building and the entry on the rear. It's not really an issue. The only, well, it may not be an issue, it could be an issue here, for example. center section. Only place that it's,
Should I, is it okay? if I-
yeah,
Yeah, I think, and maybe I shouldn't say anything and let you guys just talk, but like a minimum dimension, even, from window to window or something would be acceptable. If that helps.
yeah, so minimum dimension could be to the edge of the inside edge of the window.
Good point.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what that dimension is, but
If we, is it
I think the ten-
implied with the way we've written it to relate to the architecture?
right.
That would
Yeah.
help staff review it. I mean,
Yeah,
the
would
way
you
you
want anything
described
more?
it, it has a relationship to the window. But doesn't require the full length. Knowing that, especially with WAG, I mean, that's an existing tenant, we'll likely see that sign first.
Probably the shortest sign you're gonna see.
Yeah.
Unless they add a tail.
Huh?
Unless they add a tail to the graphic.
Add about 6 more Gs. Wag, gag, gag, gag.
So would staff want anything more than relate to the architectural elements? Would you want like to, aligning with window openings or edges?
I suppose if you don't say that it needs to align with those interior edges, then or it just leaves it up in the air. There's nothing else to align it with, so
Right, yeah.
I prefer to have a little more direction, a little more specificity.
More than what you've written or? Oh, okay.
Okay,
So
so
you're
yeah,
good.
that looks good to me.
Well, right now it says sign length
Yeah.
should relate to architectural elements with a minimum equaling the length between windows.
Minimum equaling, but doesn't that mean that
Yeah,
it has to be like 9 feet wide or whatever?
well, in the middle section there,
Oh, that's the smallest.
yeah.
I just worry about unintended like if we're doing something like that references a couple of, I just don't want to get them in a situation where they like,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I
I'm
think
a
we
little
could
bit-
but we
just-
tie ourselves in knots.
Right, let
Right.
me ask this question. If the WAG sign as it's shown here was to be located here, but just as it's shown, not extending the width of the red rectangle, would that be acceptable to you?
Where would it be located?
Like if
Let's
it were just the
just say it-
PRO of proper,
Right.
Pardon?
Yeah.
if it were the PRO portion of proper, it's just a little sign like
Right,
that.
it's yeah,
Right,
That too weird.
a little weird. Yeah.
So do we want to just, well, and I'm realizing also having looked at the exhibits, it's sort of showing both at once, and I think my.
You have any suggestions?
The batten spacing is 16 inches on center, if that helps us. We could target a minimum batten spacing. I think you're right to identify, we drew a really long sign and we put WAG in the middle and we're like, wow, that looks a little ridiculous too. So, given the tenant, the flexibility was important. WAG happens to be a small logo, but, and probably a worst case scenario, but we could also say WAG veterinarian services too. If there's a minimum that's established, and I agree with staff in that, a specified number or batten spacing or window dimension or something would be great to relate to.
what if, if we're talking about the WAG sign, the one that's short, it really seems like just this is the area that is the most challenging. What if in this area it could be, if it's short, it could be centered over one window or the other?
Or you could pull it up and center it in the building. Center section,
Which is comment number 2.
right?
I say we should just leave it general. And then when the individual signs come in, if we can't agree, we'll come back to you.
I think that makes sense.
Thank you.
So I think we could leave sign length should relate to architectural elements. That's pretty general. And maybe and delete. Oh,
Could we pull
sorry.
it back up?
Keep forgetting to switch. I think you can see everything that I'm seeing, sorry.
I think that's fine.
And then we can delete number 2.
Yeah, I think so.
Do we need to say anything that'll let it go outside of the red box they drew, or is that kind of implied by item 10? Like if they wanted to center up, I'm okay with that. But technically their red box is just over the windows.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I think that would allow for more flexibility. There's more places you can locate the sign. It still needs to be related to the architecture. I think that could work.
Yeah, great. That sounds good.
All right, any additional comments or tweaks? If not, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive sign plan criteria and the freestanding sign with the revisions listed in the staff report amended as follows. Strike item 2 to revise the sign location on the center bay of the south elevation. Add item 8 to revise the plans to show ground cover or other appropriate landscaping at the base of the monument sign. Add item 9 to consider increasing the height of the concrete base for better maintenance of the wood. And adding item 10, stating that sign length should relate to architectural elements.
Second.
I think that was Dade, right?
Is that, did you?
Oh,
That was
yes,
a
sorry,
second?
yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
I second.
Thank you.
I thought,
sorry.
or I meant to.
All right, I guess if we could put it to a vote.
All right. Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Mitsuno,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, so we will move on to other business. First is approval of the May 20th, 2024 minutes.
I'll move to approve those.
All right, thank you. Anybody, I'll second that. Could call a vote.
All right. Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Matsuno,
Aye.
and Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye.
All right, thanks a lot. Do any board members or staff have any other items they'd like to discuss?
No.
All right, thank you. In that case, the next ARB meeting is scheduled for June 17th, 2024. I'll just roll down and see which board members can attend. Dave?
I presently plan to.
All right, Tara?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
And me too, yeah, so. All right, well, thanks, everybody. This meeting is adjourned and it looks to be about 1:50 p.m.